Welcome to another FPL video. We are in the final week of the season. Game week 38, this is going to be the best free hit team, but even those of you that just used a free hit in game week 37 like myself, this will still be applicable to you because this will give you an idea of the best transfers and the best players to get into your teams ahead of game week 38 to assemble the best team possible. So let's get straight into this. Let's get this video to 200 likes. Thank you very much to everyone who's been supporting the channel throughout the season, all the channel members, the Patreons, everyone who has subscribed. It's much appreciated. We are just around 50 subscribers away from 11,000 subscribers, so it'd be very much appreciated if you smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Share this video around with people who love FPL, UCL Fantasy, and F1 Fantasy. There's going to be more content throughout the week and even next week and throughout the whole summer, so don't worry about that. Thank you very much to all of you. So I've gone for Lloris and for Ward in goal, and Ward actually started the last game for Leicester City, and it looks like he's going to get at least one other game from the Chelsea match in game week 37 or against Southampton. You could arguably start him, but I think there'd be too many doubts right now. If Schmeichel starts against Chelsea, then you would suspect Ward plays in the final game. The reason why I say this is because Brendan Rodgers recently came out and said that after the Europa Conference League exit, he told Schmeichel that he's going to get 3 games in the Premier League and Ward is going to get 2 matches, and he was going to play against Norwich, but he was injured and therefore Schmeichel played that game as well. Well, now he played in the end against Watford and he might get one more game. But either way, Lloris would be the main goalkeeper, and I think Spurs have a very good chance of a clean sheet against Norwich. They did get one in the reverse fixture where they won 3-0, and I would back Spurs defensive assets such as Sessegnon and Lloris, as we'll talk about very soon. Which other goalkeepers would I consider this week? I think from the cheaper options, Raya would be one of the better ones. Leeds have been very poor, and although they got a really important last-minute goal by Pascal Struijk against Brighton, I'd still be very concerned about their offensive assets and about their prospects of staying up, especially against Raya, who, you know, I have to say one thing about him. His distribution is incredible, but Raya's another one to consider. There's also Mendy, Alisson and Ederson from the kind of premium goalkeepers. I don't think I'd go for Aaron Ramsdale, even though Everton might set up shop, especially if they are still not safe. I don't know about that game. I still think Everton could score a goal, so I wouldn't really back Ramsdale or Pickford for that matter. So I would keep it very simple. I would go for Lloris personally, or you could just go for Raya or one of the keepers from the very top clubs in England. That's the way I would see it. Let me know which goalkeeper you would go for this week. And now let's move on to the defenders. I've gone for both Liverpool fullbacks. I think they could get an attack in return and a clean sheet against Wolves, who have been off it all year. And I think Liverpool will win and they will keep a clean sheet in my opinion. But if you're not too sure and you want to maybe invest less money in your defence, what you could do is once again go for Ryan Sessegnon, and he could take Hugo Lloris's place. And other defenders to consider also include Reece James, who has a really good chance of a haul against Watford. And you could perhaps double up on Chelsea defence, whether with Mendy and Alonso or go for Reece James and Alonso. It's up to you. But I've gone for the Spaniard because if I had to pick one wing-back or defender from Chelsea, I think it would be Marcos Alonso. He was one of the best players in the FA Cup final, if not the very best, and he's been Chelsea's informed player at the moment, in my opinion. Let me know if you think differently. Kelly is just there as a bench fodder option to facilitate the other big hitters in your defence and across the rest of your team. But if you have enough money once again and you don't go for Lloris, Sessegnon would be a much better option, and right now he is the best defender under 4.5 million in my opinion, especially with that Norwich fixture. He got 8 points and he was actually on my bench in game week 37 against Burnley. And Joao Cancelo, I think he is definitely the City defender of choice. He's got that attacking threat, he can get the bonus points, and with Laporte, apart from the odd goal he gets from a set piece, he's not going to get as many points as Cancelo in most cases, although there's not a huge difference between the two. But if you can afford it, I would go for the Portuguese fullback. And Robertson and Arnold just speak for themselves really. Obviously Matip is a really good choice, an understudy in FPL for the likes of Robertson and Trent, but I still would go for the fullbacks if possible. I can see an attack and return between both of them, especially considering how poor Wolves have been. But I would wait for the Liverpool versus Southampton game, see what happens. Has Robertson recovered from the cramp? And the other players, I think Van Dijk and Salah are going to be missing out. That's pretty much confirmed by Klopp and also some different sources. But I would expect the likes of Salah and Van Dijk to be fine for the last game against Wolves. But if there's any risk of an injury and if their recovery isn't as smooth as initially anticipated, then they might not even start the final game as well. So I'd wait for the rest of the Game Week 37 matches before finalising the best free hit team. But right now, as things stand, assuming they're all fit, I would go for this defence. I've gone for a 4-man midfield. Dewsbury Hall is there to make up the numbers. He would be first on the bench, and I'll show you how this squad looks like in FPL.team and talk about the captaincy as well in that section. But I've gone for Heung-min Son. I think he is the best midfielder in Game Week 38. I also thought the same in Game Week 37, but he did blank, and I just don't see that happening against Norwich. I think Spurs will score 2 or 3 at least, and I think Son and Kane have a really good chance of stacking up some goals, and Son could overtake Salah in the final game of the season and claim the Golden Boot. I think that's definitely possible, and those two are looking like the best captaincy options, as we'll talk about more later on. James Maddison had an incredible performance against Watford, and he was man of the match against Norwich. He's always capable of these huge returns. There's also Harvey Barnes, who's been in decent form recently, and Jamie Vardy, and as much as I think all of them are great options, especially Vardy and Maddison, if I had to pick one option, especially in terms of minutes and who I think is going to start, I think it would be James Maddison. Just keep an eye on his fitness. It's always a bit of a concern. He does get injured quite often, but I think he is the best midfielder around 7 million and under potentially, although Saka is still someone to consider, and Kulusevski, who is facing Norwich, but I would probably cover Spurs with 2 attackers. We already know who those 2 names are, and I'd go for 1 defender, whether it's Sessegnon or for Hugo Lloris. And the final midfielders are Mason Mount. Yes, a lot of people will be put off him because he missed a penalty in the FA Cup final, but players bounce back. Every top player misses a penalty, and he faces Watford. He's capable of huge returns, as he did in Game Week 36, at least against Leeds, and I think he can do the same thing here in the final game of the season. And also Luis Diaz, he is Liverpool's informed player at the moment, and I don't think I've spoken about him enough in recent weeks, and to be honest, the main reason behind that is because I'm just not too sure if he's going to start. Now, once again, I'd wait for the Liverpool lineup against Southampton, because if he plays the full 90, then that might impact his minutes in the final game, and maybe if Salah's fit, Klopp will go for Salah, Mane and Jota, who is going to face his former club and might have something else, a bit extra motivation to score goals as well. So I'd keep that in mind, but ultimately Diaz for me right now is the best Liverpool midfielder and attacker of choice. Although the stats aren't anything amazing or spectacular, he has definitely made a huge impact to Liverpool and been a big part of them winning their 2 domestic cups. Now we're going to move on to the forwards. Let me know what you think of this midfield. There's of course other options to really consider, like Saka, Kulusevski, and many more like Kevin De Bruyne, who I still think is an exceptional option, but you can't have everyone in your team. There are no surprises of Harry Kane. He has to make this team in my opinion, and he's a great transfer. Even if it means losing Salah, I would potentially consider that, and I'll delve more into this in future videos such as the transfer tips, where that will be a big subject behind that. But I've also gone for Ivan Toney. I think in terms of the fixtures, especially around his price, he is the very best. Another one you can consider is Eddie Nketiah, but Toney's fixture is slightly more appealing, and also if Arsenal and Everton both have something to play for, which they probably will in the final game of the season, that could be really tight, and it could be anyone's game, honestly. But with Brentford against Leeds, I would back Brentford to score a few goals, and for Toney to be a huge part of that. Dobbin is just there to make up the numbers. If you have enough money and you want at least one good bench option, you could go to Eddie Nketiah, for example, and have him first on your bench. Let me know how you would structure it. This team would cost 104.5 million, so it's affordable for most people. If you're not able to afford this, then you could consider, for example, one of the Liverpool fullbacks downgraded to Reece James, for example, and I think that could be your solution. So let me know what you think of this. Now I'm going to go into FPL.team, discuss the captaincy, and show you a visualization of how everything lines up. Hugo Lloris lines up in goal. Even if Ward starts against Southampton, I would rather back Spurs and Lloris for the clean sheet, so he starts. I've gone for Trent, Robertson, Cancelo and Alonso. I think that's the strongest defence possible for sure, although Sessegnon definitely has a say, and if you're looking for a cheaper defender, I definitely go for the left wing back. There's no competition there, with Reguilon out for the entire season of course, and this was obviously the case back heading into the Liverpool game as well. Luis Diaz, Maddison, Son and Mount makes up a very solid midfield, but there are some huge absentees, the main ones being Salah, especially if he's fit, Sadio Mane and Kevin De Bruyne. Mane has a good record against Wolves, and last season in the final day of the season, I know it was against Crystal Palace, he did an exceptional job, and he could do something similar this time round against Wolves, who have been off it for the last few months. So take that with a pinch of salt. It's not perfect, but then again, who would you sacrifice from this team? Maybe Trent or Robertson in order to upgrade one of your midfielders to Sadio Mane or Kevin De Bruyne. That is something you could consider for sure. Let me know what you would change with this team. I'm obviously open to suggestions and interpretations. Harry Kane and Ivan Toney make up the front two. Dewsbury Hall is the first sub, with Kelly and Dobbin making up the rest of the bench, which is pretty weak to be fair. And if you have enough money, you could upgrade Dobbin to Nketiah or make some improvements throughout the team. Dewsbury Hall as well, maybe to Martinelli. That is another example at your disposal. So there's a lot of things you could do. In terms of the captaincy, I normally advocate going for different captains and vice captains in terms of teams. You don't want to have a captain and vice captain from the same team, as you can see here with Kane and Son, but the chances of a suspension of this match is very minimal, and I think it will happen. It will go ahead, and Kane and Son for me are the top two captaincy options this week. Who else would I include in the kind of conversation conversation. One of Salah or Mane for sure, and Kevin De Bruyne. They all are very good choices. And then in terms of differential picks, I think someone like Reece James, Alonso, Mason Mount from Chelsea would definitely be at the top of my agenda. But ultimately, for me, the best captain comes from the Spurs game, in my opinion. If you feel differently, then let me know. You never know what can happen in football. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to 200 likes and let's get to 11,000 subscribers. We're very close to those milestones and the end of the season is almost upon us. So it'd be very great to reach those milestones and be able to push on further next season before the end of this campaign. So thank you very much to everyone who's already signed up as a Patreon and channel member, everyone in the Discord server, the link is in the description below, and also those who follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. It's very much appreciated. There's going to be more FPL content throughout the week, and even when FPL finishes, at least for now, there's going to be more content ahead of next season and also an end of season review. And don't forget UCL Fantasy Matchday 13 content, including the team selection, best limitless team, and on top of that, the deadline stream on the Champions League final. So that should be great. It would be a pleasure to have all of you on there. So thank you very much. And also F1 fantasy content. There will probably be a video tomorrow. So check out the team selection ahead of race week 6 in Catalonia. If you are interested in Formula 1, I'd highly recommend checking that out. It's actually a pretty good fantasy game. A lot different to FPL, UCL Fantasy, or anything else you may have played beforehand. So take care. Enjoy the football. All the best of luck for the rest of Double Gameweek 37, as well as the final Gameweek of the season, which sounds crazy when I say out loud, but time has gone so quickly and it's been a blast all season. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you next time.